Nervous guy.
Yeah, I don't know if anything's at the vet, but that's how I usually act around the vet.
I just read, it seemed pretty simple. Like he's kind of hit or miss with dogs, is it?
Yeah, so he's like perfectly fine with humans. Like I've never ever introduced him to another human and he's been aggressive or weird.
Okay.
And then with dogs, it's like 50-50. I think if they approach him too fast or aggressively, he'll get nervous, and then I guess his first instinct when he gets nervous in a bad situation will be to kind of aggressively act back.
Okay.
But then again, he's met other dogs completely blinded and been fine. It's really just kind of like a hit or miss. And it's just got to the point where like I don't want to go to like the dog park or introduce him to other dogs and wonder if he's going to snap at them or not. So
Okay.
that's kind of where I'm at today.
With the dogs, when he does, like, have you noticed anything? Is it like they bark at him, they snap at him, they're jumpy, are they big, they small? Any kind of correlation between?
Yeah, I would say bigger dogs he's definitely more aggressive towards.
Okay.
I mean, huskies, that could be just a coincidence, but I swear huskies he's never good with. And then, yeah, in terms of like other things, I mean, I know whenever he's like closer, I've noticed like if he's closer to his home, he's more territorial, maybe he's then a little bit more likely to
Okay, sure.
pounce, but other than that, yeah, I really couldn't give you anything more.
Okay. But he's got dog friends and he plays and stuff.
Yeah, he's got like, I would say maybe 4 or 5. I actually, well, those are unfortunately all in California. I just moved here from Chicago, or sorry, moved to Chicago from California. So I've only been here for about a couple weeks, but in California, yeah, he had another pit bull that he was good buddies with,
Okay.
an Aussie, a couple others, but it was pretty select.
How old is he?
He's gonna be 4 in August.
Okay, and you've had him
Since he was about 12 weeks old, I wanna
so
say.
3 months?
Yeah.
Okay. Has it always kind of been his MO, or is it something that you noticed like happened more recently?
I would say more recently. When he was a puppy, he was just like energetic and fine with other dogs. Yeah, I would say in the last year and a half, it's gotten more aggressive. I'd say around bigger dogs. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Did he ever have like was there an experience or an altercation that you feel like kind of, so like other dogs, very common, especially with like the bully breeds, 6 months in a year, like the owner said, like my dog was completely friendly, and then they got like in a dog fight or attacked by an off-leash dog, and ever since then the dog's been kind of either reactive or like, you know, like you hit or miss.
Yeah. No, there's never an incident with another dog that I can remember. I mean, there was a period when he was living with my brother for 3 or 4 months, but they didn't mention anything about him getting pounced on or anything like that.
Okay.
I do like, when he was a puppy, there was one thing that happened where we were walking outside and like a big metal gate basically almost came over and fell on him. So I noticed he was really nervous around, if we're outside and it's dark and it's really windy, similar to that one night where like the fence almost crushed him. He's nervous, but nothing with other dogs. That's the only like situational thing I'd say that he's timid around.
Okay. And then what are your goals? Like if you could achieve what you wanted, like what does that look like?
Yeah, my number one goal I would say is just to be able to take him to a dog park and have him meet other dogs and not wonder, is this going to be the time that he just snaps at another dog and bites and not. That's like priority number one. Is that achievable? I don't know with him at this point. So, but I mean, like, is there one day where I can throw the ball and he's running around with other dogs and he's off leash and I don't have to worry? Like maybe, but I haven't even contemplated that as a possibility. If I could just get to the dog park and someone walks up with their dog and says, is your dog friendly? And I can say yes every time and know that Donnie's not going to be aggressive towards it. Okay. I'll walk away happy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, that's pretty much it. I mean, he's pretty well trained. Other than that, that's really it.
Is the prong your thing, or is that from like a previous trainer?
That's my thing. I've had this for a while.
Okay.
I think that's how you basically learn not to tug as much.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
Not really. It's just the aggression towards the other dogs that I'm trying to solve.
Okay. So, the obedience stuff, like off-leash stuff, like not worrying about if your dog runs away or whatever, or early gonna run away, is like the easiest thing actually.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think like, oh, it's difficult. That if the dog's off leash, playing with the ball or whatever, or with distractions, like getting the return, reliably is difficult, and it's actually the easiest thing.
Mm-hmm.
The hardest thing is actually what you're wanting, which is not having to worry about his behavior in a dog park setting or when being approached by a random dog. Okay, and I'll explain why. So, the dog park, there are so many variables. You don't know the other dog's temperament, you don't know the other dog's personality types. If they correct a dog, we don't know how do they correct, because there's like correcting correctly, or like, so like let's say a dog tries to mount them, and you're to like growl and like snap at them. That's not aggression. That's correction. Aggression would be like a dog tries to mount him and he turns and he full on charges and bites and attacks and like goes to kill. You know, that's aggression. So when a dog snaps at or bites another dog, it's not always it can be an aggressive behavior, but it's not what we would call aggression. Corrections are normal, they're healthy in their world.
Yeah.
The problem is if he does happen to bite and actually make contact with the dog, that dog belongs to someone.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where things get tricky. But in the dog world, if you leave like 10 dogs by themselves, you will see them start to nip and bite at each other to establish a hierarchy.
Yeah.
But that's, in this example, wild dogs, like no one really cares about the wild dogs. Maybe like rescues and organizations, but they don't belong to people where it becomes a financial issue.
Yeah.
Okay. So I get a lot of clients with dog reactivity, dog aggression issues, things like that. And they're like, we want to socialize our dog. I know that's fine. I was like, but I wouldn't worry about the dog park because there's so many variables in play.
Yeah.
And he could go and he could be great. And then what if like a dog came and snapped at him and then he escalated? In his world, that's technically okay.
Yeah.
In our world, it's not okay, especially if it triggers a dog fight that other dogs jump into. Okay.
Yeah.
When it comes to greeting random dogs on the street, this is something that's kind of unfairly put on dogs. This thought process of like all dogs should love everyone and everything that they come across, and that's unfortunately an unrealistic expectation. I don't like everyone that I meet, and I'm sure not everybody that meets me likes me.
Yeah.
Right? But as humans, we don't go like, hey, I don't like you, and just punch them.
Yeah.
Right? We just know to avoid a situation and go like, oh, so-and-so's gonna be there? Yeah, I'm not going to that party. You know, like we can do that proactively. So for him, let's say you have 99 random socializations and he's great every time. But on the 100th time, what if that dog does something and then he responds in self-defense,
Yeah.
So there's a lot of variables in play there. Plus dogs don't greet like humans do. So humans would greet face-to-face, shake hands, hi, how are you? Dogs greet nose to butt. So when dogs greet on a leash, they greet face-to-face, and this is why it's more likely to escalate into confrontation because it's already starting off confrontational. And I've seen people walk up to each other and go, my dog's friendly, my dog too, and then they got in a fight. Literally.
Yeah.
And they're like, and then like, they pull their dogs and they're like, oh my God, I've never seen that before. Right? And it doesn't mean that their dogs are aggressive. It just means they've never seen their dog become aggressive. It's very different. And I get it all the time where my clients go, oh, just my dog's not aggressive. Aggression is not a attribute or characteristic that a dog is born with or without. That's like, someone saying like, this is my son, he's not an aggressive person. Like we wouldn't use that to describe a person.
Yeah.
Right? Think of aggression as like a heightened state of like anger. So like any human is capable of becoming aggressive, right? It's just whether or not are they put in a situation where they feel they need to be aggressive, right?
Yeah.
And there's people that are non-confrontational for sure, and they'd rather avoid the fight. But like I'm a non-confrontational person. I mind my business. I mean, you stay out of my way, stay out of your way, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if something escalates, like I have no problem stepping into the situation. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And there's dogs like that too, where they're like non-confrontational, like okay, and they'll avoid, but then if it comes to it, they're like, you know what, you're not giving me the option to avoid you, I'm gonna escalate the situation, okay? Now, are there dogs that are more inclined to become aggressive? Absolutely, just like there's people that are more inclined to become aggressive. And those are people that will like go to anger management classes, right?
Yeah.
Learn how to handle their temper. There's like little things wouldn't set someone off to like punch a wall. And there's some people where a little thing will make a person punch a wall.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here, when it comes to dogs, it's very much the same. The problem with dogs is that when they become aggressive, they use their mouth and they bite. Whereas with a human, if we became aggressive, we push, we shove, we yell, we punch, we kick, which doesn't obviously do as much damage as a dog bite would.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
So when it comes to social behavior, in my opinion, it's you going out into the world and he's minding his business, he doesn't care about dogs. If you came across a personality type, like let's say huskies, let's say he doesn't like huskies, I can't make him like huskies.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's like if you don't like something, like I can't make you like it. You would have to like try it out, experience it, and then decide, you know what? Yeah, I like this, right? But no one can like forcefully make you like it.
Yeah.
So what we can do is, I don't. I feel like there's something missing, and maybe like when you describe it as aggression,
Yeah.
right? What makes you feel like it's aggression? Like, is it like how intense he is? Is he unable to like settle back down again?
Yeah, so I would say like it seems like whenever he's in a scenario where he's like kind of what you described, where he's just maybe probably not comfortable or we're making it confrontational, his first reaction is to kind of like bite or snap. And the reason I'm concerned is it's not the 2 times it's happened. The second time it wasn't like a one and done. Like I was really struggling to pull him off. Like he was trying to finish it.
Okay.
That's why I was scared. The first time, I don't blame him at all because we were just, another dog actually jumped over our fence and came up behind him and he snapped. And so I was like, okay, that's not his fault, he got spooked. But the scenario that was different there is he kind of just tagged the dog right on the neck, let him go, and just watched the dog run away. But the second scenario, we weren't anywhere near my house, and when he got a hold of the dog, it was like he wasn't gonna let go.
How did that happen?
I was walking my dog with I saw my neighbor who also has a dog Donnie's never met, and it was an Australian Shepherd, and one of his good dog friends is an Australian Shepherd, and she's like, oh, should we have them meet? And my logic was, okay, he has an Australian Shepherd friend. This isn't like a husky scenario where, I at least feel have better odds. And they walk into each other and they're fine and they're, it's weird because he was almost like wagging his tail, like it seemed like he was interested or like happy, and then just went from like, this seems like it's okay, he's doing fine, to just snap, and he went, right for the neck, and I was like really trying to pull him off. I mean, he tagged the dog hard, like the ear was split, it was bleeding, it was like a...
Okay, so there was like some little bit there.
Yeah, no, it wasn't like a one and done, like the dog was bleeding pretty badly. Like the ear was split, probably had to get stitches, and I was like, okay. It wasn't a one and done, yeah.
Prior to that, before the escalation, were they like shoulder to shoulder? What was their posture like to each other?
Yeah, so they went up face to face, and then they each went like nose to butt, so they kind of were starting to sniff each other, and I think where it got weird, Donnie's kind of face was like right at the rear end, and I think he like looked back and didn't see, I don't know, I could tell he got like suddenly really uncomfortable and then snapped.
Sure.
But initially, like in the first like 5-second window to 10-second window, it seemed like he was wagging his tail and he got fine. I don't know what happened in that like back 3 seconds that made it go south. But
sure.
It went south quickly.
Gotcha. What was the Aussie's energy like? Calm, high energy?
Pretty calm, like pretty submissive, honestly. Not like, alpha on him or anything. It was pretty submissive, yeah.
Sure. And how far apart were those 2 instances?
Within a year for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you've only been here for a couple of weeks?
Yep. Just moved to California.
Okay. And then that greet was here in Chicago?
No, that was in California. All the negative incidents that happened in the city.
Chicago?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean,
California. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's those 2. And were there other moments where like things got tense, you just didn't get a chance to like escalate?
Yeah, there's been other moments where other dogs, have been passing us, and we always give like distance because people naturally give him distance because they see some pit bull like he's gonna kill my dog. And then there's been other instances where other dogs will come at him and like either high energy or I don't know if they want to play or not want to play, and then he senses like they're coming at me, and then he gets all aggressive to the point where he's pulling so hard that his 2 legs are off the ground, and I'm just like, no, Donnie, no.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. Yeah.
Okay. So a lot of those things make sense.
Yeah.
So when you go out into the world and you see someone like walking their dog, or you see like a dog running around looking friendly, or even if they're charging you, you kind of already have this assumption of by their energy, this looks like a social dog, right?
Yeah.
But for dogs, depending on the personality type, it can be threatening. Okay, so like my dogs, like I have a pit too, blue nose pit, same coat, white blaze, white toes.
Yeah.
And I have my Chihuahua, and my guys are social. They're not as social as they used to be because they're old, they're like 9 now.
Yeah.
But they're social in the sense that they mind their business. If I bring them into a setting to socialize with other dogs, they're fine. They're just not heavy players anymore, you know? So like, if I'm walking my dogs and they get charged by an off-leash dog, they're gonna become defensive, okay? Because they have to think within a split second, am I in danger, you know, themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So for this guy, you know, what can happen, and it has happened to plenty of other clients over 10 years of training, is all these instances happen, and we either are caught off guard, we either excuse it because we're thinking like, oh, well, my dog's social or whatever, and this dog looks friendly, or we just don't know how to handle the situation, is it can begin to create distrust, where he feels like he has to be more at the forefront of what to do because of all these instances, okay? So like last year I had 2 clients in particular that their dog was charged, actually both dogs were attacked at least 5 times by off-leash dogs.
Jeez.
And in response, the dogs became very dog reactive and dog aggressive. But these were actually social dogs prior. But then the owners developed anxiety because every time they saw a dog, they're like panicked that these dogs were gonna get off leash and attack their dog.
Yeah.
You know, so like we had to like address all those things because it created, the reason those dogs became reactive is because they had an experience, traumatic experience, if you will. The owner couldn't step in or didn't step in, and so the dog goes, well, now I have to be a step ahead, otherwise my life's in danger,
Yeah.
right? So it can cause distrust. And when it comes to getting Donnie, correct?
Yep.
To be social, it's more so making him feel secure, safe, that he doesn't have to be defensive. But then at the same time, when you see scenarios like if you're walking to the park and you see an off-leash dog running towards you, you actually do need to do something about that. Otherwise, for him, he goes, happened again.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And this is all primal instinct, because when you go to the park, you're assuming if there's dogs off leash, they're probably social. Like that's the human assumption, right? But he goes to the park and he just thinks, is that a potential threat? Or is that a threat? Right? So it's kind of like in police training or like military training, if they, like if you charge an officer, right? Which is, this causes like, it's like a big controversy type of thing.
Yeah.
Is they have to determine within 1 to 2 seconds, if not less, are you gonna kill me? Right?
Yeah.
And it's either they shoot and protect their life, or they delay and try another means and potentially risk losing their life. Same thing for dogs, okay? Because he doesn't understand or associate like this dog charging at me is non-threatening. He has to read it in the situation, because a dog could look friendly, but then when it arrives, it escalates. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So the way I go about helping you with Donnie is, first thing we need to do is just structure, okay? And I know, like you said, like he's pretty well trained,
Yeah.
right? Is when your ideal well trained and my ideal well trained are going to be very different. Okay?
Probably, yeah. Probably very different, yeah.
Now, the only things I care about is what you're wanting to achieve, and then the things required, okay? The bare minimum for any behavioral case is always walking on the leash correctly, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, excuse me, my style of leash walking is, if I take 5 steps, Donnie will take 5 steps. I take 3 steps, he takes 3 steps. I stop, he automatically sits. I don't care what the setting is. I don't care if you're in a Home Depot, I don't care if you're at a busy park, I don't care if you're at a farmer's market.
Yeah.
He's glued to your hip, and your leash can be completely slack, and you can build it up to completely no leash if you wanted to. It sounds super complicated, but it's very easy to teach, okay? The reason why that's so important is because it helps them just learn to be settled and follow your lead, okay? That's like the main thing, is just follow your lead. Dad makes the rules, I listen to dad, he's in charge, okay?
Yeah.
When a dog's in a more passive state, it takes longer for them to escalate, okay? So a lot of my cases are reactivity cases, and one of the most common things I see is overstimulation, which is the dog already walks out into the world like this. So then when you add in the stimuli of a dog, it just puts them over a threshold, and then they become reactive or aggressive.
Got it.
Okay? So by calming them down, instead of going 7 to 10, because they're starting on a 7 already, they go 1, 2, 3, 6, 10. So there's like a gap that it allows the owner to step in and correct them and de-escalate them before we even see an explosion. Okay? So for Donnie's case, it's really just the discipline, and we see how it affects his behavior, and then rebuild his trust in other dogs. But then you'd have to be, what's the word, kind of proactive about who he interacts with. It wouldn't be like, all right, Donnie, I've worked with you now, and you're gonna say hi to every dog.
Yeah.
You know, if you're walking and you see someone whose dog looks super high energy, my judgment would say no, that dog's too much. Like my dogs would find it disrespectful. You know, it's like if you met someone like, hey, how are you doing? Hey, what's your name? And they're just like texting, you're like on your business. You're like, yo,
Yeah.
what are you doing, man?
Yeah.
Same thing for a dog. Okay, so if you combine energy and you feel like, hey, this is like a nice calmer passive energy, I can show you how to go about that. But it's still the variable of random dog. So it's like for humans, when you go to the store, like how many random people do you talk to?
Probably not.
Exactly, right? You might talk to the cash register or
Yeah.
the cashier at the register, the manager or something, right? You might ask them like, hey, do you know where the milk section is? But we don't like to strike up conversations with random people for the most part,
Yeah.
right? So that's the same thing for dogs. So as long as he's minding his business and like just walking with you and like passing by dogs and not actively trying to attack them or actively lunging at them, putting out a threat, that's technically social dog, right? And then as you live here and you make friends and you have friends that have dogs and stuff, and you're like, hey Jesse, I just made a new friend. They have a pit bull too, who's social. Can you teach me how to socialize Donnie with that dog appropriately? I go, absolutely. Because that's more realistic. That's a dog he would see on a somewhat regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
That's also a dog that we would have control over, considering that it's a friend's dog, right? And we can take it step by step.
Yeah.
So when we socialize dogs, it's not like bring dogs and we hope they're playing. It's we bring them, we introduce them, we see what is he capable of.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe the first time you meet with the other dog, it's tense, right? He's uncomfortable, and you can see that. People tend to get discouraged, like, oh man, my dog, his hackles went up.
Yeah.
That's fine. I mean, it's just the first time. We just don't let them interact. They just coexist.
Yeah.
And then you repeat that 20 more times, and on the 21st time, Donnie's like, you know what, dog, I like you. He opens up, and then he's loose, and he's playing with them. You know? So it's like humans.
Yeah.
Like I have guys I've known for since like sophomore year. They're like my brothers, like over half my life now, right?
Yeah.
And I have friends that I made within like the past year or 2 years. And I'm really good friends with them, but I don't trust them the same as I trust my guys that I've known for over half my life, you know?
Yeah.
So same thing for Donnie is when he first meets the dog, they're just getting acclimated. People tend to push for the end result of they're running around zooming and playing, you know, they're wanting that. And I go, it may happen, or it may not happen, you know? And if Donnie's just like, hey, I'll coexist with this dog and we'll like hang out with each other, but I just won't play with them, but that's technically fine too. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's like my dogs now. You know, they're
Yeah.
8 to 9 years old. They're not the players that they used to be. I'll introduce them to a dog, and they're like, okay, whatever. We're 9 years old, so we're just gonna go chill over here.
Yeah.
You know. But yeah. So, and it's not to say that you can't take them to the dog park. It's just the guarantee of I want to know my dog won't ever do anything is unrealistic.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know, it's like it's the same thing with humans. It's since he's an animal, there's no ever guarantee there. So I wouldn't want to bullshit you on that.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely, let's say you're passing by the dog park and there's like only 4 dogs there. You know, and you're like, okay, 4 dogs, this seems pretty good. And then you start to see it swarm, and if 4 dogs becomes 20 dogs, like I'd be like, nah, I'm gonna skedaddle.
Yeah.
Too many dogs, you know. And a lot of people bring dogs that even shouldn't be at the dog park either. There was a corgi not too long ago in a dog park in the West Loop that was attacked, and that the people whose dog attacked the corgi just like took their dog and left, didn't say anything, didn't acknowledge the person, and the corgi was like stitches and sutures and drains, all like the corgi got tore up.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So like, you know, shit like that happens too.
Yeah.
So in regards to like how I approach training. Did you do any research on how I train? Like the methods that I use?
I know you use the shock collar. That's
Yeah.
pretty much all I know. I mean, I'm fine with that. I more found you because it seems like you guys have a little bit more experience with aggression, and then not just aggression, but pit bulls in general. I mean, he's like, now that I've heard you talk more about it, I wouldn't even describe Donnie as aggressive. Like, I can walk by dogs. Like a year and a half ago, maybe, I would walk by dogs and he would lunge almost every time. And then I had basically someone that lived on my block was like, listen, I've dealt with like these kind of dogs before, and he like went with me a few times and like told me that like, yo, if you're putting tension on your leash right before you walk like in front of a dog, Donnie's thinking shit's gonna go down, so he needs to be ready. And then so like I built more trust with him and other dogs. Now I can like walk by dogs comfortably. I'm not worried about that anymore, but yeah, I'm still not like 100% sure. So it's not, basically what I'm trying to say is, now having heard you talk, I understand it's probably not like Donnie's a crazy aggressive dog, just more situational.
Correct, yeah, just like with humans, right? Because trust me, like, I have a couple of dogs right now on my calendar that are aggressive dogs. One is fear aggressive, the other one is fear like anxious aggressive. But it's not just aggression, it's coming from someplace. You know? So, when it comes to e-collar, or what people call the shock collar, shock puts in people's heads like they're electrocuting their dog, which is incorrect. It's not electrocution. Have you ever been to a physical therapist or a chiropractor?
I've been to a chiropractor actually,
Have you had stim, the machine that like moves your muscles?
Maybe once or twice.
Okay. So it's like they put the circles and then it's got the wires and it contracts the muscles and everything. So that's essentially e-collar. Okay, that's the same technology. It's just a muscle stimulator. So the reason why it's my tool of choice is, one, you get off-leash control, which allows you to take Donnie, go to the park, throw the ball, and not have to worry about it. He's going to take off on me. Two, when it comes to correcting behavior, it's very non-confrontational because the dog doesn't know where it's coming from. Okay, it's just a press of a button and there's a muscle contraction. When it comes to learning and teaching with the e-collar, it's very logical. It's very common sense based. The exercises are very simple, easy to recreate and practice. You just have, of course, have to do your homework. And when you do your training, I always tell people, just do your training as you live your life with your dog. Okay. Every time you walk Donnie, that's when you're doing your training. Okay. So most people walk their dogs about 3 times a day, living in the city. Then 3 times a day you're using your e-collar and your training with Donnie. Okay. And we see how does this impact his behavior, and kind of build on things. Okay. So the first command we always teach is heel, which is walking on the leash. And the style that I mentioned earlier is a very strict heel. And it's not about like, because a lot of people will say like, Jesse, I don't want my dog to like be a soldier, but I don't want them to pull it hard. And I'm like, that's too complicated for a dog. It's either they're walking with you, or they're pulling, or they're not pulling, is how I put it, okay? So we start with that first, because heel teaches Donnie how the e-collar works, how it turns on and how it turns off. It also helps you learn how the e-collar works. It helps you practice e-collar multiple times a day, several days a week. So that's why we always teach it first. Because we don't want Donnie to think that the e-collar means to escalate the situation. We want him to learn that it means to de-escalate from the situation, okay? So if a dog is being reactive and I tap on the collar, what I want to see is the dog settle and not be reactive, okay? And be as passive as possible. So we always start with heel. Heel is typically 2 classes, okay? You have class 1, you come back class 2, how's it going? Oh, these are the improvements that I've noticed. You know, he seems more passive in the walks, he doesn't seem as alert or whatever, you know. Whatever benefits you see from it, I go, great. We're gonna work on the second half of heel, make some adjustments. We'll see you in a week. By week 3, if everything is going good, then it's up to you. If your goal is, I want to learn how to socialize Donnie correctly, by week or class 3, we can jump into socializing him, okay? But then we would need a dog. We have dogs here, but the only issue would be, even if we've not seen him, other than that one time we took the Aussie, is if we're going to socialize him, we would need him to be muzzled, right? Because if he bites, it puts our dogs at risk of harm, also a liability issue, right? So then someone's like, why the hell did you get my dog bit, right? And then I look stupid. So then muzzle conditioning would be a thing. If you're going to have a friend or find something that can help you, Same thing for them. You know, if they're like, well, you know, how come you need help socializing down? You're like, well, you see this one time he split this dog's ear. And they're like, yeah, we're gonna need to do something about that, right?
Yeah.
So there would have to be some kind of buffer there so that you can safely socialize him and you don't feel anxious. Whoever who's helping us or us, nobody feels nervous that okay, what if it happens if something goes south? Because it may happen. And if it does happen, we work through it, but then we're not worried about is anybody gonna get hurt, okay? And then we teach you how that works, and if, who knows, it goes completely fine, and Donnie opens up, and he's loose, and he's jumping around, he's playing with the dog and stuff, we go, great, like he did well with this other dog, now we get to repeat this exercise with other dogs.
Yeah.
And that's something that you would just do as you live your life with Donnie. It's like we're teaching him how to do it correctly, okay? So it's nothing that we're teaching him to do, we're teaching you how to do it with him, okay?
Yeah.
Obedience is something we're teaching him to do. When I say come, you get over here, right?
Yeah.
So then, you know, first 2 classes on the heel, by the 3rd class we can jump into socialization, or we can jump into recall, just to come when called. That's typically 2 classes in itself as well,
Yeah.
which leaves a couple of classes. So I do 3, 6, 9, and 12-week programs. Your case feels like a 6-class program, okay? Because I need 2 for the heel. If you'd like to have him off leash, not worry about him running away and being able to do more with him, recall is a big part of that. Those are the 2 most, important commands for a dog to learn.
Yep.
Which leaves 2 classes to work on behavior, okay? And 2 classes may not seem like a lot, but it's not, like if we socialize with one dog and it goes great, and we do it with a different dog and it goes great, it's like there's nothing new that's gonna be covered.
Yeah.
Right now, if you're like, hey, I got this friend who's got a dog who's it's a husky,
Yeah.
and you're like, I'd like to socialize him with a husky, and I go, sure, because your assumption is he doesn't like huskies.
Yeah.
So we're thinking it's gonna go south. And then we do it, and then it's like, he's perfectly fine. But because maybe we did it correctly.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, once you get those concepts down, it's just a matter of anytime you meet a new dog, friend's dog, whatever, you repeat that exercise until Donnie is ready. And you'll recognize it because when he sees the dog, he'll be like happy as opposed to like tense or alert.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Questions so far?
Yeah, I have one question for you. So I've been here for like less than 15 days.
Mhm.
So I'm wondering in terms of just like timing, if it's better to let him like settle in first versus.
That was gonna be another thing I was gonna
Yeah,
tell you.
because like even when I walk in, like the first few days I was here, him like adjusting because he lived basically by the beach where it was quiet, and like I said, for some reason loud noises startles him.
Mhm.
But the first few days I was here, like he was not openly going to the park. Like just in the past few days, since he now, you know, freely walks the park during the day and it's fine. But at night he's still a little bit timid, so he's still like adjusting. So
Yeah.
what do I just wait?
So it takes usually dogs 2 weeks to a month to settle into an environment. So that's not out of the ordinary. But as far as I know with Maria, you know, if you're wanting to work with us, last she told me I'm booking in July.
Okay.
Okay, and there's still people ahead of you. There's people that are still signing up. So there's also the possibility that by the time you sign up, it would either be end of July or maybe even August. Okay, so you'll have plenty of time to like eased into it.
Got it.
If you rather wait a few more weeks, see how he does, and then come back and decide like, yeah, I want to move forward, that's fine as well.
Yeah.
There just may be a longer wait. Okay.
Makes sense.
I personally don't care.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. 2 weeks to a month is typically the time frame for a dog to come into the. It's like going to a new school.
Yeah.
You know, like you don't know anybody, and then
Yeah.
eventually, like you kind of find your place.
Yeah.
Same thing with dogs. Other questions?
That was really it. I mean, you hit on all the other stuff I was curious about. So really just like, when's the best time to get him?
Sure. Whenever you're ready.
Yeah.
I mean, we're just in the beginning of the summer, so we have time. In terms of, hopefully by the time, should you decide to come back, you know, you've met some new people, maybe a couple of them have dogs.
Yeah.
The other thing would be, you know, on that socialization topic, you know, if that's something you really want to cover, I would take this time to start muzzle conditioning on.
I do have a muzzle, so that's
Okay.
good. I don't know how to properly use it, probably, but
Sure. Is it
Yeah.
a mesh or a basket?
it's probably a basket. It's like a big metal frame one, so he can still kind of move his mouth inside,
Sure.
but he can't open it all the way.
Okay.
Yeah, it's caged off.
So muzzle conditioning is simple. You would just, what we do is if you take the cage, so you have a basket style.
Okay.
Let's say you took a Ziploc bag, you put it inside the cage and like put the edges around. and I would put his dog food in the muzzle, okay? I go to feed him, he goes, nah, I'm not eating out of that. I go, fine, I just put the food away. He doesn't eat, okay? I try again for lunch. He doesn't want to eat, put it away. Try again for dinner. He doesn't eat, put it away. Try again for breakfast. Right? I keep repeating that.
Yeah.
Eventually he's gonna go, you know what? I don't get food unless it's out that muzzle now, right? So then he's gonna start to eat. But then some dogs will take food and drop it and then eat it off the ground, okay? If that happens, I put the muzzle away. He doesn't eat. And I keep repeating that. Because then he thinks, if I put my mouth in and pull it out, the muzzle disappears again. Because we're trying to teach him, this is a limited resource, and you're only gonna get food out of this object, right?
Yeah.
So eventually he's gonna learn real quick, that muzzle is gonna be his best friend. And he's gonna start eating and keeping his face in the muzzle, okay? And then once you got that going, you do that for a few weeks, and eventually you move to the point where you can put the muzzle on and clip it, and he can walk around with it like nothing, no problem, okay? Muzzle conditioning can take a couple of days. It can take a couple of months. So that's why I was like, if anything, start now.
Yeah.
So by the time, if you come back for training, it's all the work's been done. You don't know how many times I tell people to do this, and then we're ready for the socialization. And I'm like, oh yeah, you don't have done your muzzle stuff? No.
Yeah.
And they're trying to do it like a last minute high school project.
Yeah.
And what happens is, the muzzle is a stressor. The e-collar is a stressor. The dog that we're trying to socialize is a stressor. So you have all these stressors going on. I get dogs that rip off their dew claws, they tear up their face, bleeding and all that stuff. They bite themselves,
Yeah.
all because they're not comfortable with the muzzle. So it just takes one thing off his plate to worry about. It's super simple. It just takes time to do. So that's why I'd suggest you start that process now. So by the time, and then if you feel like he's getting comfortable with it, have him walk around the house with it for 30 minutes on, 15 minutes on, 10 minutes here and all that stuff. On occasion, taking him for a walk with it. So it doesn't become it's just like another thing that he wears from time to time.
Yeah.
Most people tend to only use the muzzle when they go to the vet clinic, right? And so then the dog associates all the muzzle, I know where we're going.
Yeah.
Right? That's the one time I see it.
Yeah.
So I would definitely recommend you start that process now, so that when you're ready, and any trainer who were to help you, I would say will tell you to muzzle condition your dog. Okay, otherwise it's just putting another dog at risk.
Yeah.
Okay? Other questions?
No, nothing comes to mind. That's really it.
The collar I would recommend for him runs about, I think it's about 330-ish with tax.
Okay.
It's a 1 mile range, fully waterproof system, both the transmitter and the receiver. They last a really long time. I've had my e-collars about 8 to 9 years.
Okay.
So the most common thing that happens is they do carry a rechargeable lithium battery like a cell phone. After so many charges, after a few years, battery dies.
Yeah.
You can go to Dogtra, you can order one for your collar and replace it, or you can send it to Dogtra themselves and they'll replace it for you for a small fee. But they last for a really, really long time. So it's an investment, but it's because it's good quality.
Yeah.
The most common question I get from people is, when does the e-collar go away? In my book, when you need it, it doesn't. So what that means is, anytime he goes for a walk, if it's going to be longer than a quick little potty break, you have your collar on. If he's going to be off leash at the park, you have your collar on. If he's going to be off leash around other dogs or socializing with other dogs, you got your collar on. If he's a great dog inside the house, you don't need it. If he's great when guests come over, you don't need it. If you go to a friend's house, you're going to be inside, or you're going to go out in the yard and barbecue and he's a great dog, you don't need it,
Yeah.
right? And it's not that you're always having to use it, it's just the presence of it changes his behavior, because he understands just that there's a threat of consequence.
Yeah.
So like for humans, the most common thing that people do is speed on the expressway, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody really follows the speed limit. So when they see a squad car, of course they slow down, and the reason is they don't want to get a ticket. Now there's a consequence. So I always tell everybody, think of your e-collar as a cop on a collar. When it's present, he's gonna know okay, there's a consequence, and I gotta keep myself in check.
Yeah.
But when it's off, he's gonna learn okay, I can get away with stuff, he's gonna cross the boundaries, okay?
Yeah.
It's nothing good or bad, it's nothing to do with my skills as a trainer or anything like that, it's simply the way of the world.
Yeah.
That's it.
I got no problems with the e-collar. I had a lab that was hardcore e-collar trained growing up, and that dog is still the best trained dog I've ever seen. So you don't need to sell me on how effective it is for sure.
Yeah.
It's definitely the best.
But I think for your case, 6 classes seems like where you're kind of falling in.
Okay.
You can absolutely do more. If you did 9 or 12, you would just train him obedience-wise to a higher level. But for what you're dealing with, I would suggest 6. And if we need to do another class on behavior outside of the 2, recall the most important stuff I can get done in one class. There's just a second part to it that I teach. But if it's like you want to spend more time on the socialization stuff, we can blow past the second class of recall and just work on the behavioral stuff. That's not a problem to me.
Got it.
So you've paid for my time. I just kind of show up and address what you want to address. There's just a couple of things that have to happen first before we do that.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense to me.
Anything else?
No, that's it. It's been super helpful.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the way this works is Maria handles all my scheduling. So then I'll let her know that, if you want to take some time to think things over and also see how this guy settles in.
Yeah.
You're more than welcome, reach out whenever you're ready. And then she'll have your information already in her records because I emailed her what I suggested.
Okay.
And then she'll start looking for a spot for you.
Okay.
If you'd rather not have to wait when you come back, you can absolutely start the process now because it's still going to be, it would just start in June, a month and a half to 2 months away potentially.
Okay.
Okay. So, anything else?
No, and do you are the classes usually done here?
So we work.
I know it's
What neighborhood
sure.
did you move into?
I'm in Old Town.
Okay, so you're like south and west,
Yeah.
or east, right?
Yeah.
So we work on Oz Park,
Okay.
which is a park in Lincoln Park here. It's not too far from Old Town. I would say it's like maybe 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, like northeast-ish of you.
Yeah. Okay.
Oz Park is the busiest park in the city of Chicago. Dogs, people, skateboarders, rollerbladers, bar mitzvah parties, jazz bands, like all this crap going on. Like,
Yeah.
really. That's where we train. Because it's so busy, it's a very realistic environment for you to learn your training and obedience stuff. And then when it comes down to the socialization stuff, if by that point you have a friend who's got a dog, whatever, I can help you with them, and then you would just repeat that process with that dog. Sometimes I have clients that want to socialize their dog as well, and I can find someone to volunteer to bring their dog, and show you how to do that. If we have a dog that we're working with that we can bring, I'll bring the dog. The only difficult part about that is if I'm at Oz Park all day, I don't have time to come back, grab a dog, go back, and then train, go back, drop off the dog, and then, So, but that would be something we plan ahead of time.
Got it. Okay.
Other questions?
I have no other questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if anything pops up, you let us know. And then, Maria may reach out to say like, hey, this is what Jesse suggested, reach out when you're ready. And then, take your time, and once you're good to go, you can just give us a holler.
Sounds good to me.
Okay?
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, no worries. He's a good looking pit.
Yeah, he is a good looking dog. He's got some allergy issues that I'm always